Okay, welcome again in the last session of this approach, method, and technique. In the previous sessions, we learned about approach, method. Now it is time to identify technique and its role in methodology. Yes, so we will talk about techniques in this session. So this will be the final session. So what is technique? Technique is mainly referred as implementational. Implementational refers that uh, it is something that actually takes place in the language teaching or learning in the classroom. Yes. So as techniques is implementational, that means it will be implemented and definitely and generally it is implemented in a language classroom where any language can be taught or can be learned. So what are the examples of techniques? To identify the examples, we will have these issues, these methodologies, and their way of implementing activities is referred as the examples of techniques. For example, according to the silent way, for correcting the errors of the learners, the teacher does not praise or criticize, so that language learners learn to rely on themselves. So it is one of the techniques under silent way that the teacher will not criticize or praise, rather the learner will learn by themselves. Under audilingual method, the teacher often praises when a student has made a good thing in learning. So he acknowledges, the teacher acknowledges about the good deeds. When a learner makes a thing correct, makes learning in a correct way, then the teacher admires his or her doings. Under total physical response, when a student has produced a wrong expression, the teacher just repeats the right one. So in order to correct learner's error, the teacher doesn't only he or she doesn't talk about the errors, rather he or she repeats the right one. For example, if the learner says he goes yesterday, in order to correct that sentence, the teacher repeat the sentence in through the correct format, like he went yesterday. Under the natural approach, the teacher does not care when a student make an error, as long as it does not hinder communication. So till it bars communication, till the learners fail to communicate with each other, the teacher doesn't care. The teacher doesn't imply or acknowledge or repeat it or state about learners' problems. So if we want to analyze the term technique, we should adopt the view of Brown. And according to Brown, 5 major issues were discussed to identify the term technique. The first one is referred as the task. Task is usually refers to a specialized form of technique or series of techniques closely allied with communicative curricula, and as such must minimally have communicative goals. It is focuses on the authentic use of language for meaningful communicative purpose beyond the language classroom. So task can be inside the classroom or can be beyond the classroom, but it mainly focuses on a meaningful language use. It is based on meaningful communicative purposes. So it can be referred as a form of technique. Then the second section is activity, and activity refers to virtually anything that learners do in the classroom. As we say, that technique is implementational and that should be in the classroom. So the activities also happen in a classroom, and the role plays, drills, games, peer editing, small group information exercises, and many other things can be identified as activities. But the teacher's behavior, including saying good morning or maintaining eye contact or explaining a grammar point, will not be referred as activities, because these are not the part of the learners, these are the part of the teachers. However, it can be referred as techniques. This teacher behaviors, the teacher's way of expression can be referred as technique. Next section comes to this point is procedure, and that is mentioned by Richards and Rogers. He sectionized it under methods, and they told that Richards and Rogers, they told that the actual moment-to-moment techniques, practices, and behavior that operate in teaching a language according to a particular method. So used term the procedure in that way, in these ways. So moment-to-moment techniques, practices, and behavior, and those all refer as a part of technique. And then practice, behavior, exercise, and strategy. In the language teaching literature, these terms and perhaps some others all appear to refer in varying degrees of intensity, degrees of concentration. That means a technique can be used to gather concentration. So it could be through practice, it could be through behavior, it could be through exercise, or it could be to implement a new strategy. And the number 5 and the last one is referred as technique itself. Before Antonio's model, before Antonio discussed or referred as technique, the language teaching literature generally accepted technique as a superordinate term which refers to various activities that either teachers or learners perform in the classroom. So it is all about the performances from the part of the teachers, or it could be the part of the learners. So anything which is performed in a classroom can be referred as technique. In other words, technique include all tasks and activities. So all those five can be referred as technique. So if we talk all those things as techniques, so let's see what they have done. They almost always planned and deliberate, done on purpose rather than by accident. So all the performances by the teachers, by the learners are done on purpose, not by accident. They are the product of a choice made by the teacher. And they can, for your purposes as a language teacher, comfortably refer to a pedagogical units or components of a classroom session. So they are introduced from the part of pedagogical units, from the part of teaching. So a language teacher can comfortably use those in order to carry on his or her language classroom. So those techniques can be teacher-centered, learner-centered, production-centered, or comprehension-centered. And it also can be clustering together to form a task. So in any way, it will help a teacher to continue his or her language class. So these are the references which were used to gather the information used in all these 3 presentations. Hopefully you will find that this is helpful. And if you have any question, the forum is created in the later section of this lesson. So please ask your questions specifically in the forums. And last of all, thank you. Thank you very much for being here, for being concentrating hard for all this time. Thank you all.